Hello and welcome to the Salt Collect channel, where we collect buckets of salt from the tears of enemies. And today we have something special, someone special, I should say, on the channel. Welcome, Aidan. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty all right. It's slightly early here, but not too early.
Not too early. Whenever I'm chatting to you, this is about my time. It's 3 o'clock, so I think you're at 9 o'clock now, or 9:30. Sorry, I'm 3:30.
Yes, it's 9:30 here.
But normally you reply
EST.
to me like 7 a.m. Or 8 a.m. or something. So that's kind of early as well to be replying.
Yeah, that's normally when I get up. Normally
Okay.
I get up and then I see like whatever messages I've received.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, most of you know Aidan as Panda from Discord, the man with all the knowledge. Very, very helpful. Thank you so much, by the way, for being that voice on Discord and helping all the Boltonators learn their lines, learn their deck, learn their play patterns, and get advice.
I enjoy it. It's helpful for me because just discussing things, like sometimes you'll respond to a question and it forces you to think or reconsider something that maybe you took for granted, or maybe you were wrong about, you had some preconceptions. So just fostering good discussion is helpful and enjoyable, I find. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And as we all know with Boltyn, there's just so many different ways to make a deck, to build him, what light cards, what charge cards, how many yellows, all that type of thing. So it's very difficult to find the right answer for everybody as well. So that's a challenge, and something hopefully we can shed some light on, pun intended, today with this special video on deck anatomy with the Boltonator.
If I may interrupt briefly,
sure.
Completely unimportant. I just noticed the dragon in the background I chose is actually animated. It's moving.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I was like,
you got a high-end background there. I've got a blurred attic. You've got a dragon in the background. So.
All right, but yeah, let's
Okay.
That's the first sidetrack. Let's hope there aren't too many more.
Yeah. So just a quick side note to the viewers. I made this, and Aidan, I don't think you've had much time to look at it. So feel free to jump in at any point where you disagree or you have your own opinions on something, because that's what this is about. This is about just discussing. I think there will be general rules or guidelines, and then within those there'll be differing opinions.
Yeah, I did get to go over it once or twice, okay. So I know the structure of it, and I've kind of read through it and have some thoughts, but I haven't gone super in depth into what's there.
Cool. Probably better. More sincere answers we'll get then. So I called it ratios or numbers within the deck, ratios, whatever you want to call it, and we will be basing it on these types of cards. Bolton players should be familiar with charge cards, yellow cards, light cards, and obviously non-light cards. The one that might need explaining is tech, and that is basically your sideboard, what you're bringing in for the meta. Like for you, I've noticed you brought in Humbles for certain matchups. People brought in Warmonger for the Azalea matchup, or tech might even be combo. Your sideboard combo to tech against the aggro decks or the mirror or whatever. So that's how I sort of classified tech, and then that sort of mixes in with equipment a little bit, but equipment I think deserved its own little slot on deck building as well. Primarily, I'll be talking from a Raydn build. I think that's also your familiar position.
Yeah, I certainly have knowledge on combo, and I'm familiar with a lot of aspects of it. It's definitely not something I have super in-depth knowledge of, because I barely play it. I played it. I used to play it, and I was so happy to be rid of it when I decided it was no longer necessary. But that's just me.
No, I think it's. I played it for a while, and I just consider it a necessary evil. And then the more I play it, the less I wanted to play it. And so even in those matchups where I wanted to play it, and I would win, it didn't feel fun winning, and
exactly.
It was so unfun that I would rather struggle and lose than do that. And I don't know. That was just my opinion. Some people like it.
No, that's the exact same thing that happened to me. I remember I brought it to an armory once, and I 4-0'd,
Yeah.
3 of them weren't like challenges at all. I just brought combo and I just won like easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't see disruption. I saw my Luminous fast, and it was like, wow, this is the least happy I've ever been to 4-0.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was back in October, and I took the combo out, and I haven't put it back in since.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. Hit
I
it
don't want
somewhere. Cool. So we'll move on. I started off with the charge cards because I think those are the most important cards of Boltyn. That's what makes Boltyn who Boltyn is. I've put it 27 to 30 is what we should be aiming for. And
yeah, I agree.
these here are my favorite in the order of how good they are. Vanguard being the best and Light the Way being the worst. I think you can juggle them around a little bit. But Vanguard, I think, is by far the best charge card. It's sort of different to a traditional charge card where you play it on these big turns, whereas the other ones you could play it with 2-card hands type of thing. But it's still a charge card at the end of the day.
Yeah. I guess to add some thoughts in here, 27 to 30 is kind of the standard. It's somewhat arbitrary in the sense that it's mostly just you need to have your ratio of hitting as high as possible. You don't want to increase your odds of missing too much. We also need to have room for, the useful cards, the cards that actually win you the game, because just drawing these kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So you can go lower if you decide you want to take that risk, but you start to really hurt your consistency if you do that.
Yeah,
if you go higher, you won't have enough room for good cards.
Exactly, that's it. I think that's the bottom line is you want to draw one every turn. If you don't draw one in one turn, so you have 2 Bannerets, 1 Bolting, 1 Lumina, okay, fine, you get to use your helmet, and that's good and all, but it's not what you want to do. It's not sort of the game plan. Knowing what I know now, and just playing more and experiencing more times where I've just not had a turn because I didn't have a charge card, especially when it's like 10 life each or 5 life each. I think 27 for me is like sort of where I want to stay at. But as you say, it doesn't really matter as long as you figure out a way in your deck to get a charge card every turn, whether you're drawing more cards through whatever it is or being able to sieve your hands better, then you could drop this number down a bit.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I guess in terms of the ones you've shown here and the ordering, I basically completely agree with the order. The order changed. Express was before Spirit of War.
Okay,
there we go.
Yeah.
Only difference of opinion here for me is I like Light the Way a lot more. Admittedly, it does just suck in a decent amount of situations, but it's good into no block matchups. It's good into Jeremiah. It has the notable benefit of enabling Beacon into Lumina off of just 1 soul prior to charging.
Yep.
Because it's soul positive if you hit, of course. But it is still situational. I would put it above Express Lightning, but that's the only.
I can see that. I can see Light the Way being there. Like these I think. Even Bolt of Courage, I think I like it a lot in the way I play my decks. It becomes very good, but I could see it not being that good. Take Flight, I used to hate, and I still don't like it that much. But whenever I play it, I like playing it. It always gets me something when I play it.
Being soul positive, is really strong when you need it. Like when you don't need it, when you've already got a good amount of soul, it kind of sucks. It doesn't suck. It doesn't feel great. If you don't have a tunic resource or like something good to do with the extra resource, then it kind of feels bad. But it really is just one of those. You need consistent sources of soul positive in your deck. Take Flight is just the most consistent one.
Yeah, so that's what you're saying with Light the Way, right? So Light the Way, and to some extent, Engulfing Light with a Beacon does the same thing. Well, no. Yeah, you get the soul.
Or Steel Hand.
Yeah. So you do get the soul. I mean, that's why I've always advocated for Engulfing Light. When a few people have been saying it's not a good card, but it does help with those getting your soul bank of soul going, and with I forgot what it's called, the Beacon of Victory. Yeah, you need 2 soul for that one, but then you use 2, but you gain 1. Whereas Light the Way, you only need 1 soul because you get the go again from
on hit.
On hit. So I can see Light the Way going up, especially if Dromai becomes a thing or allies become a thing, then Light the Way gets more value.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, Dromite is a thing. I wouldn't say become the thing. Dromite is still
More
around,
of a thing.
just not as prevalent as it used to be. So here, I think I just copy and pasted before I actually changed the order properly. That's why the cards here are changed. I just put these odds here of a 27 cards in your 60 card deck. 92% chance of drawing one charge card, which is pretty good. 8%.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means in terms of like exactly what information someone could take away from that, but 9 times out of 10 you'll be okay. That 1 time out of 10 you'll need to use Snapdragons, or you have to use your helmet, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. The way I kind of look at it is the 92%, the 8% mischance isn't like some magic number. At least not as far as I'm aware. Maybe there is a reason and I'm just not aware. It's like, okay, how high can we get this number without compromising the strength of our deck, notably? Because then you need to either go above 60 or start cutting like impactful cards.
Yeah.
So it's not that that's a magic number. It's just like getting as much charges in without making your deck suck.
Got it. Yeah, I never looked at it like that. I looked at the next part more like that. So charge cards I've always liked. Like I if you're able to use them and Raydn, then they're fine. If you're not able to use Raydn, then they become really bad.
I guess another way to point out is that there's a finite number of charge cards that feel good.
Yeah.
Once you get past like Red Express, Yellow Bolt of Courage and stuff like that, it's really like the options really don't feel good.
Yeah. I think,
like, I don't like this card.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's what I think. That's one of the things that why we have. I mean, a lot of Boltyn decks will have the same package of 30 cards or whatever it is, and then outside of that, people will start putting their own flavor, and that's because there's a lack of choice. When it comes to charge cards, when it comes to light cards, yellow cards, whatever. So in what you were saying about weakening the deck, that's when the yellow cards for me personally come in, because if I need to change my reds to yellows, I'm losing 1 point of damage per card. But then I remember reading someone saying that by having that yellow, Beaming Bravado becomes that 1 point you're losing more often than not. You're not going to worry about that in that instance. So moving on to yellows, I put 27 to 30. I think 30 is better. 27 I play, but I do struggle sometimes, I've noticed. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's just I don't even know, in the sense that this number will vary wildly depending on how I sideboard.
Yeah.
So matchup dependent and dependent on what list I'm testing. I would say at the low end, when I'm sideboarding, I end up at 25, like at the very lowest end. That's like, all these cards I want, like Sink Below CNCs, they're all coming in.
Sure,
I don't bring in Bolting or something like that. I don't actually know what a good amount is, other than vaguely this much. If you're running Prayer or something, you go higher. But it is mostly just you need to have enough so that your Warband is turned on consistently enough, so Beaming Bravado doesn't suck, so Light the Way doesn't suck, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then you also need to take into account that you really don't want to charge away the good cards. So Lumina Ascension's a yellow. Do you really want to charge Lumina Ascension?
100%.
Very rarely. Sometimes, sure, but very rarely. So
true.
Vaguely this is what it should look like, but it'll depend, and I don't have a good strong argument other than this seems right.
Well, we have these 9, right? So, I mean 10, the top 10, 3, 3, 3, 1. And then the bottom 4 of those cards as well, generally in all Boltyn decks. And then you add on some other yellows to make up. But so these top 9 here, via the Vanguard, Luminous Ascension, Beacon of Victory, you really don't want to charge. You want to use them if you can, because that's where their power shines. Sorry?
You can charge Beacon. You can charge and block with on occasion. It doesn't in a matchup where you want to play out all your power cards. It doesn't reduce how many, like when you block or charge away a Lumina, you now can play 1 less Lumina over the course of the game.
True. Yeah.
With Beacon, that's not the case. You might not see another Lumina or something, but it's not as iffy.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. I just like it for its versatility in sort of being able to set up anything. But of those three, yeah, that is definitely the one that is the most easy to sacrifice, I would say, if I'm needing to charge a card. What I got here? So I got exactly the same numbers, so it's the same percentage here. Yeah, and I mean, as you touched on Prayer Bologna, that will change your deck significantly. You need, I think, 38 plus 40 yellow cards. I think I was playing 40 yellows and I still wasn't hitting. I mean, I have a really bad relationship with Prayer Bologna, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'll let you do the talking there. But 40 yellows.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of Prayer, and I still kind of like the card to an extent. I don't dislike the card. It's basically, that is a second-ish cycle card for the most part. Yeah. You do want more yellows in a Prayer deck, but I think some people would focus way too much on getting it as consistent as possible so they can play it whenever and have good odds. And I think when you do that, you compromise your deck's strength too much. So I think you do up the yellow count a notable amount in a Prayer deck, but really, unless it's kind of free to throw out, like you can tunic it, and the case where you miss isn't too big a deal in the moment. Generally, you save them for second cycle, where it can be potentially essentially be a take flight that refunds you a card, which can be very, very strong when combined with cards like Bolting Blade, or anything really, and you could just get a huge go wide turn. But regardless, the ratio would go up to some number. It's just don't try to get it to 100% or something, because that's how you make a bad deck.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see the ceiling of it. It's got some, and I have used it, and it has worked out on times. But just going forward, if I'm ever going to build a deck, that's not going to be on my list to make. I know some people love it, and it works for them. And I think that's also what I've been telling people who've been asking for advice on what should I do here, what should I do there. It's sort of, what does your deck want to do, and does it work for you? If you're playing Take on the Chin and all your cards are 0 cost or whatever, then that might be better than Take on the Chin in another deck, or Snatch in one deck versus Snatch in another deck, type of thing. So it just depends on how you want to play a deck, how you build a deck, and how you play as a player to some extent. Aggressively, defensively, you like to block, you don't like to block, type of thing. So whenever I'm saying anything, just bear that in mind, whoever's watching or listening, and you as well, Aidan, that it's based on my experience, based on the way I like to play, and based on sort of my deck building. So that's why this card doesn't sit in my deck or any of my decks, Prayer Bologna, after trying it.
I would like to echo the sentiment of different people are going to just approach playing a game in a little differently. Sometimes one method will be better than another, but there is an element of playstyle there for sure. And also Boltyn is super far from solved. There's obviously some things yes, you run Via of the Vanguard and Lumina Ascension in your deck. That is non-negotiable. But there's a lot of ways to approach it, and I think anyone who claims that theirs is the correct one or the best one at this moment in time is, at minimum, they probably don't actually have enough evidence to back that up.
I've been close to claiming that. But I haven't had the evidence to back it up, so I haven't claimed it just yet. And there will be a day, maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So we have our charge cards, we have our yellow cards, and then you have your yellow charge cards, which is, I don't think we need to explain too much on this. They just fit both roles, so you don't need 54 cards. You could do it in 40 cards if you have enough yellow cards that charge, for example, that cover both requirements of hitting 27 to 30 cards of charge and yellow.
Yeah, basically. Of the ones shown here, the only two that I'm actively super happy about in my deck are Beaming Verado and Via the Vanguard.
Yeah.
Yellow Take Flight is fine. If you don't think you'll need Tunic Resource for V anytime soon, then Tunic Take Flight is still good. If you have a Valiant Thrust, it's still good. It's touched on Soul Positive before. It's just consistent.
Yeah.
And when a card is a yellow, it's fulfilling the requirement of being a pitch occasionally or being a target for being Bravado Warband charge. So it's like a fine card. And then we already talked about Prayer, so I'm not going to touch about that. The other three are kind of like the filler. Like they're the charge cards like 21 to 27 vaguely of like, I don't love these cards, but this is the best I've got at this point. And of those three, Bolt of Courage I definitely think is the best. Drawing a card on a V-turn is so good.
Yeah, demands a block in some instances. Well, it depends who you're playing. If you can give it go again, if you got a courage token, quicken token out. If it's on a via the Vanguard turn, hitting a dragon to set up your arsenal for next turn. Bolt of Courage is probably my favorite of those three you mentioned as well. I used to play 3 reds, 3 yellows, Courageous Still Hands. Some other attack reactions, and it worked pretty well because you can always give it go again, and you could get the on hit. And that's when I was playing a very low to the ground deck. That when you draw, you know you're going to draw, or you don't know, but you're very likely to draw a 0 cost another attack card, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, snatch, or something like that. So it does have a place in certain decks. Even as you say, in some decks that just need yellow charge cards, it's a great, a good card to fill in those last slots. Like the way I did like 2 of, because it killed some dragons, got the go again, and it helps the Raydn, but that was in a heavy draw my meta when was it? I think it was pre-heavy hitters. Where I play in Holland, there's a lot of Dromais, and they're Dromai players that will play Dromai no matter what. If it's like the worst deck, if it's middle deck, the best deck, they'll just play it. I think Dromai Prism and the old Prism, they would just hop between these illusionists. So that I guess like me with Boltyn, or some of us with Boltyn, they're like that with Dromai. So I'm going to see Dromais no matter what, wherever I go. So I like the way yellow for me isn't a bad choice either.
Yeah. I think this is a tough call between it and Engulfing Light. So Engulfing Light's more generically good.
Yeah.
But yellow. But as you already mentioned, it's way overperforms into Dromai for a yellow charge card. It's also decent-ish into no block matchups. You play it, let's say you have tempo, you play it against Katsu or whatever, and he looks at it, it's like, man, do I really want to block this? Do I want to spend a card blocking this? Especially if they have to block with an attack.
Yeah.
And whereas if you present the same thing with Engulfing Light and you don't have a pump, they can just say no blocks and your turn ends. So I think I like light yellow. I don't run it right now. There's not enough Dromai, and there's too many decks that are okay blocking with it. But I think it's solid. It's okay in as a meta call, just not this one.
So yellow charge cards, and I've gone straight into the light cards, which doesn't have to be warrior cards. They're not going to charge, but they will help you with Lumina via the Vanguard and Soul, and they're generally going to have some synergy with what we're doing anyways. This is no particular. I think the only order time I made the order was the first page. Outside of that, I've just put cards in. I just didn't have the time. I've put here you want around 50 to 60 light cards. I like closer to 60. I did play my 3 snatches, 3 sinks, and 3 command and conquers. I don't think ever at the same time I would play those 9, but I think I would play at least 6 of those. So I would go down to 54 in one of my decks. 57 now is sort of where I'm at. Going below 50, I don't like you said at the beginning, it's not some magical number, it's not something you need to hit. What works with your deck, and in the general traditional standard Boltyn decks, you probably want 50 plus light cards so that you know consistently you're going to get a good via the Vanguard turn. You know consistently you're going to get your life and your soul built up with Lumina hits instead of hoping and crossing your fingers. Yeah.
Basically more or less agree, although I'd like to draw distinctions between so the 2 reasons you want light cards, as you mentioned, Lumina and Via the Vanguard. A non-light card that you can play on a V turn easily.
Yep.
Is kind of dodging that issue, right? So Snatch kind of gets a bit of a pass here, because I think anyone who's played Boltyn for a while has been in the scenario where they've got like a V in Arsenal, Tunic ticking up, and they're like, okay, this is the turn, I'm gonna send it, unless they disrupt me or whatever, and then you draw like 2 Sink Belows.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just the worst feeling. But a Snatch doesn't do that. You want to play a Snatch on a V turn. It's fantastic on a V turn. So if a card can be easily played on a V turn, then it's like a half light card in this context. It's still a miss on Lumina, but it's not going to brick your V. In terms of the amount, more or less agree. 50 is definitely way more non-lights than I'd be comfortable with generally. But sometimes a matchup just necessitates it. Like I think I'm on 8 non-lights versus Azalea right now. Just because Sink Below's CNC Warmongers are all too good into Azalea for me to not want to bring. Well, Sink Below's iffy sometimes, but the others are fantastic. So it really is just like I want to keep the number as high as possible, but of non-light card or of light card percentage. But if the non-lights I'm bringing in are just that good, then you accept the consistency hit and try to play around with that to the best of your ability.
Yeah, for sure. I think I have the exact same sideboard into Azalea. 3 Sinks, 3 CNCs, and 2 Warmongers. I've just started playing Warmongers since I've removed my combo. And when I thought Azalea wasn't too bad, now these Warmongers, they give you some free turns. It's so good. It is so good. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't tried it yet, please try it, and then just see what they write. They'll stop for a while. They might try to enable chat, and then you'll keep playing for a bit. It's quite fun. So we have. Sorry.
It's also really good into the mirror if you present Raydn because you don't run combo like me, and then they present combo, and you're like, ah. Then you have your copy of Warmongers as just potential. Save your ass, can be tutored off beacon situationally. So
I was going to ask, do you do that early then? Would you, as soon as you can, beacon Warmongers, put it in Arsenal, and then put the pressure on?
Because you need to, so let's say they're at 30 and they signal combo. So like I play my take flight or whatever, and they're saying no blocks. They've used their armor, etc., etc. And then I Warmongers them, and they're now at like 20 or something. The odds that I will be stripping cards the turn afterwards are very low. I need to draw like the nuts, right? So Disruption, when they're still healthy, I mean, if they found the combo, then it's better than nothing, but I think that's just potentially just a losing state unless you get to chain them. So I'm not tutoring for it immediately. I am going to, if I'm going to tutor with Beacon and they're still high on life, I'm going to tutor something that pushes as much damage as possible that turn probably. But once they start to hit those low mid health thresholds, if you get them there before they find the combo, 'cause sometimes they just combo you turn 2, they find Arena, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm dead, whatever. But that's when they can't just afford to take a turn off and say no blocks again. So at that point, it's kind of done its job. If you can get to if next turn you're now stripping cards when they want to play the combo, then now you're actually in a spot where you're likely to win. So I won't tutor for Disruption until I either think I have to, or I know that they're at the health threshold where they can't afford to take another turn or they can't afford to wait another turn unless I break.
Got it. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I was just thinking, because now that I've ditched combo, and if I do face a combo player, I was thinking, how early do I want to see Warmongers? And then, I mean, even so he's at 30 life, we're at 30 life, but he doesn't have it ready. Do I keep it? Do I put it in Arsenal and wait for that time where he just says no blocks, no blocks, no blocks? Okay.
Oh, that's hard. Because having your Arsenal clogged can hurt your damage output a lot. and not always, but like if I find a V, if I find an early V, if I can send a 5-card V before they're comboing, that pushes a lot of damage over the top. Boltyn doesn't block himself well in the mirror.
Yeah.
I would rather not have a Warmongers in my arsenal there, but at the same time, you don't want to like be caught without your disruption when they find the combo. And also, this answer also changes how many just pieces of disruption you have. Just how many pieces that say you cannot combo this turn when you present it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because you'll be running 3 CNCs, a couple Warmongers, and then some people might be running Humble, or something like that. And then a CNC with a beacon on top is always nice, just to get that 1 point of damage to sneak through and destroy their arsenal. I guess I just need to get more reps in to see, and I just avoid that matchup though. To be very honest, I just don't like to play.
It's awful.
Yeah,
it's very unfun. Katsu at least makes me think. Katsu can be enjoyable when they're not just exploding you.
Yeah.
I hate the mirror.
Yeah.
Even Raydn v Raydn isn't that enjoyable.
No, it's
not terrible, but
it's not too bad, but it is a bit. I don't know the best word to explain it, but it's like.
It's very polarizing.
Yeah.
It feels like whoever gets Tunic V first just wins, or whoever gets Double Lumina first just wins.
Yeah.
It does to an extent because you don't block them well favorably. It really does just kind of feel like whoever draws better to an extent.
I think that's it. I think because the blocks just don't. Any block just helps them, helps their helps our game plan. So we don't want to block, and if we don't block, then it's just a very quick race, and so whoever's got the bigger damage outputs is gonna win that game.
But it's better than combo. I'd still rather see Raydn than combo.
Yeah, that's very true. Cool. Okay, so we've got our 3. These are the 3 bulk card type of cards in our deck, and we can mix and match them. So they could be a light yellow card. It could be a light. I mean, if it's a charge card, it's going to be light anyways, because that's the only charge cards that exist. But again, we don't need to have 30 plus 30 plus 50, so 110 cards. No, we can fix all these cards together within the light cards themselves of 50 to 60 cards. So the yellows and the charges will fit within these light cards. And then you have some yellows which don't fit in the light card thing, and you got some reds that don't fit in, but we'll talk about those later. Actually, right now, these non-lighties, which I think we touched on why we need them a bit. So Snatch, it fits in a V turn. Sink Below. Most of these cards tend to be, I mean, Snatch and Light and Strike, they're main deckable. I think that people main deck those, but the other cards seem to be more sideboardy, techie cards where they just help you out in certain matchups. Azalea Bravos, fatigue decks, disruption type of thing. And so that's why I put the 0 to 10, because it just makes up from 50 to 60. I don't think we need to talk too much about these. I think we'll go into more of these cards in detail when I get to the sideboard or tech part, because then we'll talk about Tenacity, Sink Belows. I mean, Ravenous Rabble, I was surprised but people do play this card in the main deck. They do play it as a form of go again, of a V turn. You're not using your soul. You're getting the bonus out of it, hopefully. If you get a V for 2 and you hit a yellow off it, you're going for 5. So maybe, you still get the go again. You don't need to use the Boltyn ability. So that's why I put it in there, because I know a few people play it.
I've never seen it before. I've never even really thought about it. It's not super, what's it called? Intriguing to me at first glance, but it's also not something I've even considered until today.
Yeah, I as well. So when I heard about it, when I heard people using it to some extent, to some success, then I had another look at it. I'm still not going to play it, or relatively soon. Yeah. I might do some experimental stuff and try it out, but it's there for other Boltynators to have a look at and consider. Okay, so then we move on to the tech part, and this is, like I said, the sideboard. And most of these will not be charge yellow or light cards. Some of them will be, some of them can be, and that's the thing. When we're building our deck, if we can get the best cards to be a light charge yellow, then fantastic. But that's not always the case. Then we got to go. I think you said this as well. When we're evaluating a Boltyn card, what are we looking at, right? We're looking at how it fits in with your deck, synergy, and that's yellow, that's light, that blocks 3, that's does it charge, those type of things, and how many of those does it cover? I think, yeah, multi-purpose. Let me see if I put it somewhere. No, I won't. Otherwise,
Spoilers.
I'll ruin the surprise. So I'll leave it here. This is the tech, the sideboard for different matchups. D-Reacts, mainly against Dominate decks. And Brutes, I suppose. You know, you want to...
And Ninja. Aggro.
Yeah.
It depends on the D-React in question. In terms of Soul Shield, the way I look at it is, if it's not a pure race, and it's not like they're not going super wide. So like Soul Shield is something I'd like in Defy if it weren't for the fact that actually getting it to block efficiently with it is very difficult. Most of his attacks are 1 to 4 power. Getting even just 5 value out of it is difficult. So Soul Shield, unless they're doing that, and unless it's a race like into Kano or something, Soul Shield is in always because it's good. Soul positive on rate block.
Yeah.
That all you got is a Metacall. It's nice into Kasai and Assassin. It's okay into Ninja. Or it's good into Fi. It's okay into Katsu. It's okay into the Mirror, but it's also a yellow, so it's a bit more flexible. And then Sync, Fake Foreseen are just like, yeah, you run them into Dominate matchups. They're also just good into Ninja. They're good into Brute, depending on what else you're bringing in. It's situational, I'd say. Just depends on how you're approaching that matchup. I tend to bring them in sometimes depending on my current deck configuration. Like, do I have something I feel is more impactful?
Yeah.
But just being able to have one for their Blood Rush turn or whatever, just to make them leak less damage on a power turn is, good. That is good.
Yeah, for sure. I like it against Brute because I play against Brute. I tend to play more 2-card hands than I do full hands against them, or 3 cards, 2-3 cards. So being able to block with a 0 for 4 is just a good rate. Then to sort of sieve your hand a bit. Same thing with Soul Shield. I tried it as a combo player into Fi. It just wasn't, even as that, didn't really help progress the game forward. The Soul is nice, but blocking there, waiting for them to attack with a lava burst or whatever it's called, and then taking damage, or just using it on a 3-attack, 4-attack, doesn't feel good.
The rate is too bad on it, yeah. Even if you do need the Soul. One other thing, I said I bring it into almost every other matchup. I also don't bring it into Rhinar, which might not be correct, but man, if it's in your hand and Intimidates don't go your way, that sucks.
Yeah, no,
that's the worst.
Yeah, don't bring this into the Rhinar. I've learned that the hard way too many times. Because one of the reasons why I bring in Direct into Brute is also for pulping. And Soul Shield doesn't help you with pulping. It just blocks it. And they still get to go again. Yeah. So with Sink Below or Fate Foreseen or that all you got, even hold the line, blocking 2 and then block from hand, you still stop their turn. If you know their deck list, or if you're imagining some pulpings coming your way. Against Rhinar, yeah, I agree. Definitely no Soul Shield there. And I think Rhinar is maybe the easier of the 3 brutes. It does have some tricky... It's got a lot of non-attack action, so it does block a bit better. And it can just do 20 plus damage out of nowhere. If it blocks, defense, Blood Rush Bellows, 20 damage. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
There is that, but I feel like there's a little bit more... I mean, with KO, he just non-stop 13, 14 plus damage.
You.
Yeah, and Levi is also becoming more consistent now with the new cards, and with Husk. If they block with that at the right time, and Scowling Fleshback, all the brutes have it. just makes life a little bit miserable.
Yeah, I think of all of the three, I think I definitely struggle into Levia the most. I actually haven't had any trouble with Kaio at all for a while now. I don't know if I'm just not running into good enough Kaios, but it just feels like if you man, even when they're just getting the cast bones, it feels like I just trade favorably enough, consistently enough that I will win. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so odd. Like when I see your results or other people's results and how they're so polarized to my results in also different heroes. So like Dromai or Azalea or someone, and a lot of people say I can't do that, but I could do this. I can kill Ninja, I can kill KO or whatever, KO. And I say, well, I don't know how you're doing that, but I can kill Dromai and I can beat Azalea. So for me, it's so weird and it's really interesting. And I don't know what it, because that's why I've asked you multiple times now and no stress, no pressure. I want to see you play those games so I can see how you do it, and I can see what I'm doing wrong, because I'm definitely doing something wrong. If a Boltyn player
Yeah,
can do that and win consistently, then why should I say to you, no, you're lying, or no, that's not right, or no, whatever. No, let me learn from you instead. Let me see how you're doing it, and I want to get those results as well, and then it brings up my overall game quite a bit better.
I think not to get on too bit much of a tangent, but that mostly comes down to two things. Is the easy one is deck construction.
Yeah.
So like I used to be on the vigorous thrust list, like a bunch of thrusts and banner to vigorette, and people are like, "Oh, how are you doing so well into Dromai?" It's like my deck is specifically teched well to beat Dromai. Still didn't destroy Dromai. I wouldn't even say it was favorable into Dromai, but it did a lot better than your average Boltyn list.
Yeah.
The other thing is just mentally, how do you approach the matchup? So I used to struggle, and to an extent still kind of do, into aggro dash and dash IO more than I felt I should. I think those matchups are favorable for Raydn, but I was just losing more than I felt I should be. And really, it's just because I think mentally I was approaching the matchups incorrect. I think I was blocking too much in situations where I shouldn't have been. But those are the main two things. Like some people will just approach a matchup in a different way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that way is incorrect.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. I think it's my exactly like you say to dash IO and aggro dash. I have that same problem going into Phi and into Kaio. Katsu, I just give up. I'm just never going to do that. So I'm just not even going to talk about Katsu.
That's a rough one.
Horrible. And I guess maybe it's the amount of reps that I get into those heroes that lets me have the familiarity and therefore the confidence and the ease and the sort of way of thinking when I'm playing a Dromai, that I know, okay, this is what I should be expecting, this is what I should be doing, and it's not too much of a guessing game. Okay. Yeah, too much of a tangent. Anyways, on to the next one, Anti-Fatigue. I just have 3 cards in here. I don't know if we need to put in more. Tenacity, Remembrance, and V for Valor, red or yellow. Yellow might be the better option because it ticks more boxes.
These 3, my favorites, Remembrance, definitely.
Yeah.
The main thing I like about it, I'm not going to ramble too long because we have been getting all out of tangents, but the main thing I do like about it is how it can save games that are otherwise instant loss. So actually last night I had a loss against Kasayad and Armory, where I had Tunic ticking up to 3, V and Arsenal, and then I draw a Bolting Blade, Celestial Cataclysm, V of the Vanguard.
Yeah.
And I look at this hand, and then they play Blood on Our Hands, and I'm like, oh, I lose.
Yeah.
I lose because I can't block with this, because then my Vs are gone. I will not be able to push enough damage over the course of the game to not lose the fatigue. So my only option here is to take this huge turn on the chin, go down to like 6.
Yeah.
And I sent it back a big turn anyways, but I had to charge 2 via the Vanguards.
Yeah.
So that is actually what I like most about Remembrance, in addition to just fatigue, is just it allows you to block with your must-play cards and not just lose to fatigue afterwards. Because if you are into Bravo and they see you block with your Vs and Luminas, they're like, okay, I wouldn't have fatigue. I just fatigue them now. They can't realistically go over the top now, and that's why I like that card so much. But tenacity and V for Valor also help go over fatigue a bit as well. I don't think I know how to play with V for Valor well enough to use it, but other people have had great success with it, and it's compelling on paper. So
Yeah, V for Valor, I played it a couple times. I like it. It just plays mind games with them. You attack sword and tunic, one card in hand, tunic up, and with your sword. And if life totals are low, then they have to block. And if they block, you don't do anything. If they don't block, you do 5 damage or whatever it is, 6 damage. So it does play mind games. It does require a setup.
Oh.
Tenacity I like because of these three.
Oh,
Am I gone? Am I here? Hello, hello.
hello.
Am I back?
Oh, you're still You're frozen on my screen, but I can hear you like, you're in and out for me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. The recording is still okay, like, because it's recording my camera, so the internet is not an issue. But if you can't hear me, that might be a problem.
Oh, okay. I can see you again. You're not frozen now.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, now I can hear you. Hello? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay, I think there might be
I think.
a delay, a little lag now. I'm not sure why.
Huh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
It seems good now.
Yeah, seems to be okay. Yeah, so tenacity for me is the only option of the 3 that is immediately aggressive and doesn't take a setup to do it. So you can play it, you can beacon for it, you can, and I've never had those big more than +4, I think. So I've had a couple +4, so it's gone up to 6. But mainly it's +2, +3. I've seen people post like +6, +7. That's nuts. So it's good on a V turn. It's good to search up after you notice they block a lot with a beacon. It's also good because it buffs its power over its base power, so you can give it go again and do something else afterwards if that's required. But I agree. I think Remembrance is the best because if you get back 1 V, that's more damage than any of those two other cards put together, right? So there is that, but just drawing Remembrance and it's basically a passive card versus Tenacity, which is an aggressive card, an active
Remembrance can also randomly lose you the game in situations where Tenacity wouldn't, because sometimes you just needed a block.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen too often, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, I guess in the games you bring it into, the blocking is not as important versus an aggressive game. So I mean, I do like Remembrance a lot. I've been testing Tenacity instead, and it's also fine. And just be very honestly, I don't have that much trouble into fatigue decks, anyways. So I don't think Boltyn does in general. Maybe Decimated Dory, can be a bit tough. But
yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's actually overkill in terms of fatigue a lot.
Yeah.
But I would want it if like say Fatigue Bravo was really popular. If I was running into that more, because that's just I actually think with Remembrance that matchup's like almost unlosable.
Yeah, for sure. If they just want to block you out, and then okay, fine, I'm gonna do 20 damage 6 times with Via the Vanguard.
I'm gonna play 3 more Via the Vanguards. Yeah. Block this, nerd.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, good thing is we have the tech. We have the cards. 2 of them are generic, which is fine. The yellow, which is good, and then the other one's a light card. I've made a Poppers, what's it called, column, because I think it's that important. With Prism and Dromai, I think every deck considers when they're building a deck, whether you're Boltyn, whether you're Olympia, you're going to think about how many Poppers you have in your deck, because they will come in handy at some point. And luckily we have 2 very good ones in Celestial Cataclysm and Bolting Blade, which tick multiple boxes already. And for many Boltyn players, they're already in the main board. They're not even in the sideboard. Some people put in the sideboard, just depending on how you organize your sideboard, main board. And then Command and Conquer is such a good card. A lot of people, not a lot of people, I keep saying a lot of people. Some people have said just cut it and put in something else, but it's just so good. I think there's so many helmets, so many heroes now that don't run Crown of Providence, that this hurts. Ninja, it hurts Ninja from the 5-card turns. Ranger, obviously, a big one. Assassin as well, depending on what build they have. Scowling Fleshbag builds, the Mirror, Kano, to some extent. They can get around it a bit easier, but it's also it asks the opponent questions. So I love it. I don't think I'll ever be cutting it.
Oh.
Am I out again?
Very briefly, very good now.
Okay. So, yeah, anything you want to add on poppers? United We Stand, I haven't touched on. I just put it in there.
Not really. The way I mentioned it to someone in an RTN recently is that if Illusionist didn't exist, I would still run 9 poppers. Just Bolting Blade, Celestial Cataclysm, Command and Conquer all make the cut even before I consider poppers.
Yeah.
It's if I'm really worried about Dromai or something, I will maybe go up 1. I think the Prism matchup's still very favorable, although less good than it was before it was like free. I guess just to quickly mention some other poppers, like if you don't have Command and Conquer or something because it's expensive, United We Stand is the only other yellow light popper, which is why it's notable. Its play mode sucks.
Yep.
You basically never want to play it, but it does have a play mode. I am running 1 Humble right now. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's just another piece of disruption for the Mirror that I can try and hope to have on their combo turn. And it is situationally very good into other matchups like Levia.
Yep.
You can occasionally explode Levia with it.
Yep.
Humble plus Beacon is really funny. But not much else to say there. Just naturally, you should have about 9 poppers if you run those 3 because they're really good.
Yeah. 9, 10. Some people run. I ran 8 in my Dromai run, which I think was too low, and I wouldn't do it again. 9 minimum. Especially if they're going, like as you say, those 9, you're not losing anything by putting them in because you probably want them in anyways.
They're just good cards.
Yeah, and then others are just for targeting the meta. Warmonger's Diplomacy would target if we're heavy with Azaleas. Even the Mirror we spoke about. Oasis Respite you might want to play if you feel like Kano is taking over. Take it on a chin. I like taking it on chin. Depending on the deck I'm playing, but even now I put it into my sideboard because if Kano is going to, I'll bring it in for the Kano matchup and maybe a dominate matchup like Azalea or Bravo. But against Kano, I can, if they're going to pitch stack me, then I'm going to draw this card, and if I can draw this card, that's 4 Spell Void already with my Halo of Illumination plus this, and then I get 3 more with Null Rune, Soulbond. Sorry, 2 more Null Rune, Soulbond. So I get 6 straight away before they do much. Does that cover 2 wildfires? I think it does. The third one it won't survive for sure not. But I think 2 it covers.
Yeah. I don't want to go too in depth into this right now. I think if the Kano decides to pitch stack you, I actually take it on the chin less because the way I look at it, which might be wrong, is that if they get to their pitch stack, I'm just dead.
Yeah.
This is playing Take It on the Chin is equivalent to like pitching a yellow for AV2, because it costs a card. I like it when they're not trying to pitch stack me, and I guess if they get to their pitch stack, it's better than nothing. Especially because I won't be on AV2.
Yeah.
I like the card overall, though. I don't run it, but I've been tempted to run it, and at minimum, it's a decent card that is worthy of consideration. But I guess my other problem with it, and this is more of a me thing, is I don't know the full list of decks I'd actually want it into.
Yeah.
Like it's just I'd have it in my sideboard. It's like, do I bring this in? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's solid.
Yeah, I've been on and off it. in regards to the Kano thing, yeah, I see what you're saying there. If they do pitch stack properly, then they're going to win. And if we don't beat them to it, they're going to win. If you notice that you're putting on pressure and they've used one Aether, Wildfire to block or whatever, they only have 2 left in the deck, maybe something to think about. But yeah, if you draw it on a non-pitch stack Kano and you have that card, then it does also.
Then it's good.
Yeah.
Then it's actually performing very well because it could also fix Go again. But if they're pitch stacking and I draw this and I can't like charge it away or something, this is a break.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing when you spoke about drawing a Sink Below on a V turn. This has that problem versus what some people are putting it in for are things like Courageous Steel Hand, which give you the go again, but this will give you the go again the turn before to set up the following turn. Courageous Steel Hand you can charge. Courageous Steel Hand you can hit off Lumina. So I'm still not fully sold on it, but it's definitely a card worth considering for other Boltyn players. And depending on how you want to build your deck, type of thing. So, I mean, we're not going through every single card available that is good and should be spoken about. I think these are just the general cards that people are looking at. And if you are starting a Boltyn deck, these are the cards that you should probably look at first and then sort of try them out. They don't work for you, then look for something else. Even the cards we showed earlier. I think what I forgot to mention, Aidan, is that these sort of videos are not for super experienced Boltyn players. I think experienced Boltyn players will know what we're talking about already and have maybe better opinion, more insightful, more games, more reps or whatever. I'm not sure. But the beginning players or the middle players who are struggling to say, okay, I have 20 charge cards, is that enough? Then they can see this and say, no, we need 27 or 24 maybe if you can get away with it in other ways. Or yellow cards, poppers, that type of thing. So I should probably say that at the beginning. I'm saying it now. Better late than never.
Makes sense.
And then we have multi-purpose cards. We touched on this already. I don't think we need to talk too much on this. So a card that does multiple things that a Boltyn player needs. Yellow, light, blocks 3, charges, whatever. I put Command and Conquer in there because it pops and it disrupts. Via the Valor yellow because it's a yellow card and it's a light card and it helps with the fatigue matchups. So I don't think we should need to spend too much time talking about these. Okay, so we are now onto the equipment suite. And this is again with Raydn being the primary weapon that we're using. For here, I just put in the matchups, and even those are not like hard and fast rules. They change as well because I changed it on one and not
there's a lot of factors here, but we can like most of them are pretty easy.
Yeah, let me just go to the end and put them all together.
There we go.
So the main ones are Raydn, Tunic, I think, Iron Song, Warband of Bellona, and Snapdragon Scalers. That's sort of like the most aggressive Raydn you can get because Tunic helps with Be the Vanguard.
Vanguard, Take Flight, and other random 1 cost that you can just fit in your curve. It just helps push damage over. It's fantastic for fighting against fatigue because Tunic V will just reliably push so much damage. It can also, in more mid-rangey matchups like into Brew, if you go first, you can, Tunic 3 card V, like just V charge 1 card and then like swing Raydn and play a Bolt of Courage. That's a 3 card 12 with on hit draw at the end. It makes good numbers. Just makes good numbers happen that otherwise it wouldn't. So I view it as the default, and then if I'm considering taking something else, it needs to justify itself to me. Or like Tunic needs to be explicitly not as good for a reason. Like if the game goes too fast or they have T-Bone.
Yeah, so I think putting that as our sort of, that's how we're going to start most games. When are we not doing that? So obviously we're going to put in Halo of Illumination.
For Kano,
Kano.
And when you bring in combo mainly.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I don't like it still for combo. I'm not an experienced combo player, but I just don't like having that ability to not block. Um, and the, my experience with combo is that I need to block, otherwise I'm going to die whenever I'm at that combo point. Not
yeah,
always, but on occasion. But yeah, it does have that use of filling up your soul quickly. Turn 0, turn 1, whenever it is.
yeah.
So you got that extra piece of soul. Now with hot streak, it becomes
A
your
little less necessary
yeah, hot streak
because
is
you
pretty
do not
cool.
need as much soul to combo into the mirror ninjas
Yeah,
because they're mostly attacks. If you have even just like 1 or 2 soul and you swing a hot streak, the odds they will be able, if you have 2 soul, the odds they'll be able to full block that twice is very low.
yeah,
Without blocking with an attack action, that is.
yeah.
Um, so I think I would run it if I was on combo. I would run it into the matchups like namely Ninja, where it's like, yes, I really, really want to build soul as fast as possible so I can let combo rip like ASAP.
Yeah.
Um, and I was gonna say something else with regards to it, right? And obviously Kano.
Yeah,
Other than that, you just run.
yeah. Warband Blown is such a good addition. And then at Kano, you also look at rune, some sort of null rune. I go with the gloves, because I'm not getting a block out of Iron Song Versus, and I love having Snapdragon Scalers to push the damage through. Some
Yeah.
people prefer to have Radiant Flows instead of Snapdragon Scalers just to have that extra bit of defense.
So into so I just on the topic of null rune gloves, it's because the primary use case for it in my eyes is Kano. I don't even generally bring AB1 into Rune Blades, although I'm considering it for Vinset when I go second specifically, but that's a tangent.
Yeah.
Because I want into Kano, and my headpiece is useful, my chest piece is useful, and both foot pieces are useful. Iron Song Versus, not particularly useful. So it's null rune gloves for me.
Yeah. Rune
I
Blades, I put there as a question mark. I don't play it into any Rune Blades. I can see it being played into Vinset against Viscerai.
Viscerai, don't bother.
It's just, yeah, they're going to get the rune chance. You're not going to block them. And even if you
It's
do
just
block
vanilla
them,
damage.
yeah, you're not going to be able to. You're never going to do it efficiently because we're playing a lot of yellows.
Exactly,
so whether
yeah.
blocking
It's just
3
not worth it.
physical or preventing 2.
Or just sending the card. It's basically only good when you want to get a card out of your hand, like it's a dead card, and you can't block physical with it, which is very rare against Viscerai even. It does happen, but not common. I think the 2 most important things to discuss here on this page are I think we do the foot pieces last because that's actually where I think the most nuanced discussion is.
Okay.
And then Soul Bond. So we mentioned how Tunic's the default. So when do you and okay, obviously you bring combo and combo's good in this card, Blade Hold for combo.
Yeah.
But Soul Bond, it's a good card.
I love it.
And you bring it sometimes.
Since I've learned how to use it properly, and I think you need to learn to use it properly. It's not just a 2+1 block. It's an enabler, right? So turn 0 it enables things, or later on it enables things that get your soul going. I think I wasn't introduced to it, but I was more light or my vision was put more onto it by talking to you guys and some other guys in the Discord chat, and saying, and also when I was talking about I'm just not beating these guys that you guys are beating, and I'm not also using the same equipment you guys are using, so let me at least take step 1 and use the same equipment, and sort of do how you guys are doing, and it has improved my win rate a lot by playing Soul Bond into brutes, for example, and into Azalea. I've always played it. I switched around between Tunic and Soul Bond for a while, but most recently in the last couple of months it has been Soul Bond. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you there. Please.
Oh, no worries. It was all on topic. And I have a habit of rambling, so sometimes I talk too much. But anyways, Soul Bond has a lot of nuance to it in terms of how you use it. So the most obvious time to bring it is into Kano. If you have it, you should bring it into Kano. It forces him to play on his turn. If he plays on your turn, you will always prevent 1 damage unless you didn't play a charge card, which is occasionally but not never, or occasionally but not usually the case.
Yeah.
So it's just fantastic into Kano. That's the easy part. The hard part is the rest. So at base it's 2-block temper. So sometimes it is just going to be a 2-block temper, and that's fine. Into Azalea, just armor, good. Armor's really good into Azalea.
Yeah.
But the main draw of it to me is that it enables you to go second and try to take tempo into decks that really want to have tempo. So like Fi always wants to go second. The problem with Boltyn is that a lot of his hands won't work because you will need +1 soul to play it out. You want to play out the hand because that's how you keep tempo against these decks that block like shit against Boltyn.
Yeah.
Azalea, ninjas. They don't want to be blocking Boltyn. Brute to an extent, although not Rhinar. I wouldn't run into Rhinar. But so when you go second and they go first, most of the time they will want to filter their hand in some capacity. So you just immediately slam Soul Bond and charge the best thing in your hand to charge. Ideally Banneret or Irina if you have it.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's most free to use it. If you use Soul Bond on any other turn, you are losing a card for the turn in terms of value, more or less. It might pay off in the future or be worth it, but there's a cost, much larger cost to it than doing it turn 0, where it's effectively free unless they have a really, really good turn at leaking damage.
Yeah.
And that gives you that +1 soul to more reliably actually threaten damage or disruption or something like on hits when going second. So it allows you to start with tempo against the deck that wants to start with tempo because they don't block well into Boltyn. So that's like Azalea, Dash IO, although sometimes I'm not sure if I actually want to go second against Dash IO. Ninjas, etc. It also, against Azalea, situationally helps with Dominate. You can filter cards into Soul when you can't block with them or you can't play with them because they read in the Legend to you. It can help cover Dominate. It's also just armor, as mentioned. The prevention on your turn can be niche relevant into stuff like Blood Rot and Brutal Swing. That's more like a secondary thing. It's nice when it happens.
Reckless Swing, yeah. Reckless
Riptide.
Swing, right? Riptide, yeah.
Reckless Swing, yeah.
Yeah, Riptide's a big one. A lot of incidental damage there.
So, and another thing to note is a lot of these games are games that don't actually go that long necessarily, or it's hard to line up turns to use Tunic with. Like Azalea, the game can go long against Azalea, but like just lining up via the vanguards against her is not
tough.
Easy with all the arsenal disruption and Friend the Ledgers and frailties, etc., etc. Yeah. It's just you're not reliably going to get that value offensively necessarily. But a lot of these I will run specifically Soul Bond when going second. Like into Kaio, for example, I run Soul Bond second to Tunic first. I'm not 100% certain that's correct, but it has felt good so far.
Yeah, well, you got the results to back it up, so maybe I need to look into that as well, because I was just running Soul Bond regardless, first or second into Brutes, Ninja, Azalea. Dash IO, I just fatigue them, so I run Soul Bond and Radiant Flow. And then when I get a good Illumina turn, I do that as well, because that puts a little bit of pressure on them.
I do run Soul Bond into Azalea when going first as well currently, although still not super certain.
I always went first against Azalea for as long as I've been playing, until like last week, and then I started going second.
It's a actually tough call because the Azalea is way more likely to be able to hard punish you for it than say like Fi.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is, well, First of all, most Azaleas who I've talked with who understand the deck to an extent would say they generally prefer going second against Boltyn because they just want to have tempo. They want to start with tempo. The other thing is that Azalea needs to present a 8-power dominated attack turn 0 for you to be able to not fully cover it with just Soul Bond plus a card. That's not necessarily super likely. It's not super unlikely, but it's not guaranteed to happen. Then the effect needs to be relevant. It needs to be Raydn the Ledger, Sleep Dart, something like that. If you're taking a Blood Rot or something, it's like, okay, well, that's far from ideal, but
Not
but it needs to be dominated 8-power and have a crippling on hit, which turn 0 is not that likely. So I'd rather just go second, and if they have it, they have it. If the rest of my hand is really good, if I like charge a Banneret of Gallantry and then I have like Sea Luminas, then I will even commit a little bit more armor. And it's like, okay, now I'm sending minimum single Lumina. Maybe I draw a double Lumina. Maybe I draw some other gas, and I've got a really, really nice turn 2. And I'm just way ahead with the game already. But they can't just blow you up. They can just like turn 0, 8+ power dominated, Raydn the Ledger. It's like, okay, well, yeah, sure.
Raydn Ledger with Seek and Destroy, that hurts. But yeah, as you say, the odds of that happening are low, and this game, whether people like it or not, is based on math, based on numbers, based on how
you have to take risks to win at Flesh and Blood. Normally.
Cool. Okay. So, I mean, again, so going back to playstyle and how people want to play and how people prepare for certain matchups, there are going to be more successful ways or ways with higher win percentages than other ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean for you and your deck you can't play Tunic into those matchups, or you can't play Soul Bond into the matchups that we've said you should play Tunic into.
Yeah, it should be mentioned outside of Kano. It's not that I think Tunic is necessarily bad into these matchups. I have just found that's what Soul Bond is bringing to the table is a bit more compelling for me for the most part.
I think
last time I brought Tunic against Dash.io, all my armor got T-mode. And I didn't get to use Tunic.
That's a good point.
Not what's going to happen.
I was going to say, so if it's good to learn how to use these equipment in what we're talking about, and then do whatever you want afterwards. Like, I think in most things in life, when I studied film in film school, they said learn the rules, then break them later. So learn how to use them in suggested matchups, and then go from there and do your own thing, and say, no, I want to use this. No, you know what? I'm going to use Grains of Blood Spill. Oh no, don't use Grains of Blood Spill. Do whatever you want, have fun, and just figure out what works for you and your deck. This is what works for me and for Aidan here, and we've played a lot, so at least you can learn from our mistakes or our successes in that way. Then the other chess piece is Courage of Bladehold, and that is just for combo, which dictates your weapons and your gloves as well, your gauntlets. And then there's still even debate about who do you play this against. Some people play against Brute, some don't. Some people play against Fi, some don't. I think most people are in the camp that you should play against Katsu. Dash.io, I think most people in the camp you should play against Dash.io if it's in your sideboard. Some people play against Kano, some people play against Azalea. I think it comes down to how experienced you are as a combo player, what you're comfortable in doing, and how much your deck is built on being able to support combo versus it's just a side thought that I need because people say I need it.
Yeah. More or less that. I guess the other thing is the mind game factor of if you're a deck that actually might be scared of combo, will they prepare for combo? You can try to psych them out if you think both styles are playable into the deck, and you think they have different sideboard prep for one style or another, depending on the hero. But I don't play combo, so I don't
Yeah.
have a ton to add on that.
No, I can't add too much. And I think Refraction Bolters goes into the combo, should actually be in the combo card
Yeah.
slots here, because that's the only time you would play it. And I've seen it in I think his name's Roger Bodie, I think. He did quite well in
Yeah.
Battle Hardened, and he played Refraction Bolters in his combo deck. And I think he played combo a lot more than most hybrid, into more matchups than most hybrid decks would. But his deck was also built differently to do that.
Yes. So I wasn't huge on Refraction Bolters for the longest time, and I still am not. The one thing that someone mentioned that made it more compelling to me was it plus Gallantry Gold plus your Courage and your hat full blocks of CNC.
Yeah.
If you've not used any armor yet. And that is compelling to an extent. If you think non-breakpointed, non-buffed CNCs are going to be their primary way of trying to disrupt you on a combo turn, that is pretty compelling.
Yeah, that is massive. Yeah, it is.
And it still achieves the +1 soul effect of Snapdragon Scalers. Only issue being you're sacrificing consistency on your go-agains like Bolt of Courage and Engulfing Light. So if you don't have a way to help those, you don't have Irina, or you don't have Beacon or a buff, then a hard brick. But I don't play combo enough to say realistically if that's worth it or not. I'll let others.
We'll leave it to the combo players to chime in here.
Basically.
And yeah, I guess if you want to, I mean, what I do is if I see a deck that I like, I go to see how other people are playing it and doing well in it. And so if I wanted to learn how to use combo, I'd probably go watch some of Roger Bodie's playbacks if he has any online, and see any of his deck techs to understand those choices and lines a bit better. Okay, and then last but not least would be the boots. Well, yeah, I guess we'll go to the boots now. Snapdragon Scalers, Radiant Flow.
Yeah. So Snapdragon Scalers is really easy. It saves you on go again if you have Bolt of Courage and no pump for it. It's effectively +1 soul. A lot of the time when I use Snapdragon Scalers, I'm not even fixing go again. I'm just using it because it enables a line that I was otherwise short by 1 soul for.
Okay.
So very generically good. It's hard to go wrong with bringing it into a matchup. It's effectively never bad. It's basically then a question of like, okay, does Radiant Flow bring more to the table if you're on both? And if you have the slots for it, I do recommend both. I think it's especially if you're pre-Raydn. If you're combo, it's much iffier. But Radiant Flow is really good. It's not free. Giving up Snapdragons isn't trivial, but Snapdragons just go unused a lot of games. If your soul's healthy, if you never needed help with go again, then Snapdragons will often just sit there and never ever get used, and you basically just wasted your equipment slot. Obviously, some games it's like pivotal, it's like crucial, and some games I'll bring Flow and be like, man, I wish I had Snapdragons here.
yeah. Always the case.
But I guess baseline, it's instant speed, 2 armor. It does cost a soul, which is really relevant. That's a huge drawback. But that it's 2 prevention, so it's can prevent damage that armor can't deal with normally. So it can prevent it can help into Kano. It's almost but not quite effectively 2 more Spell Void into Kano. And it can't be eaten by just 1 damage. Like if I use it and they like an assassin player tries to flick knives it, that will stop 1 of the damage, but there will still be 1 floating prevention.
Yeah, the split is amazing.
Actually, yes, the split is fantastic, and there's actually a lot of interesting situations where it can be great. Here's an example. Dash.io plays a boom grenade, and then they go 4 power attack, 4 power attack.
2 breakpoints covered.
You can block with 2 cards, pop Radiant Flow, and you just covered both of them, and Boom Grenade didn't hit you.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Also with
it-
Katsu as well, when he does his little tricks +1s, and then he wants to Kodachi you after that because he's got the spare resource.
Yeah.
I think not as good an example as the 2 breakpoints for Dash AO, but it has come into effect with me against Katsu. I don't know why I have Boltyn here. It shouldn't be here. I think it was the copy and paste from one of these, and I just forgot to delete.
Boltyn, I wouldn't bother. Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it's terrible into Boltyn, but like I run snaps into Boltyn.
Yeah.
I think there could be an argument for it. Actually, no, because if you bring that and they're on combo and you brick even once on go again, you lose.
Yeah, you can't. No, Boltyn shouldn't be in here. I would suggest not to play against Boltyn.
But in Dekatsu, the main thing is like they play what is it? Be Like Water, the one that can rename the Surging Strike, and you put a card in front of it and they ancestral it.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm really sad there, or they Art of War. You having instant speed armor that then floats if they only do 1 damage just is a nice safety valve for a lot of situations like that, where it's like, oh, I need to cover this, but I kind of want to overcover it in case they have that pump because I cannot let this hit.
Yeah.
Another example being Rain Razors. You can instant speed respond to Rain Razors with it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of shenanigans it can be a very nice safety valve for. And then I also, something that isn't listed in here is Guardian. I just run it into Guardian because it's more armor. They throw a naked Spinal Crush. I can just put my armor if I want to save my turn. Throw a naked Spinal Crush. I've got like Tunic 5 card V. I can just throw my 6 block there and it's covered and I can send my turn. Or it prevents a naked CNC. You do need to be, very careful with your armor usage in Guardian matchups, but I find even if it is just 2 armor that costs a soul, I like that more than Snapdragons into Guardian.
Okay, that's very interesting. I never considered bringing Radiant Flow into. I did consider bringing Soul Bond into the matchup, but I think it makes more sense to bring in Radiant Flow, so I have Tunic for the big turns.
Yeah. Now, when you bring it, you'll always run into times where you will just miss Snapdragons, where it's like, man, I wish I had Snapdragons here.
Yeah.
But I find that can normally be dealt with or play around. Very rarely is it absolutely crippling. I have almost never regret bringing Radiant Flow into Guardian.
I will try it. I will definitely try it because I mean it's the problem is, and most Boltyn players will agree with me. I hope is that we already win that matchup. Like you don't need to bring in whether you bring in Radiant Flows or Snapdragons or that matchup is already quite a favored matchup for us. Victor is still young, still early days to say, but Bravo, Betsy, I think we're quite favored there. That changing one piece of equipment here and there might not make too much of a difference in the end result. But I will experiment with it because I hate getting steamrolled by Bravo, 2 or 3 dominate reds that just end the turn. So that might be something. What do you need? You need 7 to block Starstruck, right? So I guess you can still do armor plus.
It'll comfortably cover 9 power and less just with armor if that's the case. But it is also just like another piece of armor if you just end up not using them all at once. If it's like, oh, I need to cover I want to put a card and some armor in front of this kind of thing.
So Azalea, would you think about this for Azalea then in that case? Because it's similar.
I forgot about Azalea. Yes, I always run this into Azalea.
Okay, so full fridge into Azalea.
Yes.
Okay.
Rain Razors and also just more armor. The way I look at it, Snapdragons is the default, but it's not such a powerful default that I am super attached to it. I am very happy to bring Radiant Flow into any matchup where I feel the armor is impactful, the effective armor, or if they have instant speed tricks, or if it's Kano. I should mention I only bring it into Kano going first because
you get the charge.
It is rough on soul economy.
Yeah.
This is effectively -1 soul. Snapdragons is effectively +1 soul. Into Kano, it's a race. I want to kill them ASAP. And if I go second, I'm not going to have that +1 soul. so it's going to be harder to support Radiant Flow. Because of that, I'm currently on Snapdragons going second, but I'm not completely certain about that.
Yeah, I'm on Snapdragons either or. I think it's just it's too good in terms of that race that's need to race, and
Yeah.
if you force them to combo when you're at 20 life with Spell Void 2, Soul Bond plus AB 1, then it's very difficult for them to, depending on their setup, depending where you are in the stage of the game, but out of nothing, it's very difficult for them to win. Radiant Flow might be good. I haven't tried it. I've just felt like if I miss on if I do a charge 4 damage turn, Express Lightning, and I can't follow that up, I feel bad.
Yes.
I feel very bad.
It's just often that's a risk I'm willing to take because I've got a lot of pumps, courage tokens.
Okay.
Sometimes even if the hand doesn't have go again, just blocking your cards or whatever and just doing a 2, 1, or 0 card play is like whatever.
Yeah.
It's when you have Luminas and you have no way to give it go. That's when it really bites.
Hurts. Yeah.
I should mention I have half an hour left.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I think we're almost done. We can move on from equipment. I know there's maybe Null Rune boots or Radiant Touch instead of Null. So some people would consider Radiant Touch for the Null Rune, the Kano matchup instead of Null Rune gloves, which makes sense if you don't want to pay for AB. And then you could still have Snapdragons up.
It becomes slot intensive because you probably don't want it into as many matchups because then you're giving out Iron Song versus, which is really bad in a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
But it is compelling when you ignore the sideboard slot cost angle.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully we've covered enough here. Yeah, we are going on quite a bit of time now. So quickly cover, I think we spoke about this already, inclusion consideration when we have our full deck. Our 60 cards plus or whatever it is, our 80 cards, including equipment. We need to make these considerations when we're putting a card in. So we got to reach our charge number, our light number, our yellow number, and then after that, so those three are the most important, I think. And then the next three are the next tier of importance, I suppose. So block 3, I think Via the Vanguard works with Via the Vanny should probably be over there. Block 3, deck game plan, and works with Via the Vanguard are what I look at next after those top 3. Mainly, I think actually deck game plan should be number 1 of all of them. But because we're limited with Boltyn to have charge cards, light cards, and yellow cards within 90% of our deck game plans, I put those 3 up top. But deck game plan should then theoretically dictate everything else that goes into your deck. And then finally, I have meta tech. What's the meta looking like? What cards you want to put there? Sideboard cards that have so much value that you just can't ignore. For me, it's Snatch. Some people say E-Strike. I guess flexibility and value could be the same. Same defined as the same, because if they have lots of value, then they usually flexible. If they're very flexible, it means they give you value for different scenarios. Okay, and then we shall move on to the last part: trap or slap. This is an addition, a game we're gonna play, and you're the one who said it. It came from your idea of we need to put in cards here that people think, why is this not played in Boltyn? And your first card was Art of War. Yeah. Trap or slap?
So, definitely trap. I don't think it's like actually terrible in Boltyn. But some of a recurring theme, if you've the Boltyn chat in Purple Discord, if you've been there long enough, you will notice the pattern of new player wants to try playing Boltyn, and they're like, hey, why don't we play Art of War? Because on paper it does seem compelling. It does a lot the deck wants. And inevitably they find out why. Whether it's because they listened to what people said or they decided to go ahead and try it anyways. The most compelling mode on it is the draw. Being able to dig with it, that is nice. The problem is the other modes. So Boltyn normally doesn't go super wide, so you're not getting a lot of +1 value off of him. His widest turns involve Lumina Ascension, which doesn't get buffed by it. It doesn't buff Raydn. So the +1 attack value is not actually going to be that useful a lot of time. It's going to be okay. It can give Go again. It's nice to play off Tunic in some situations for sure. But it's not going to be getting you anywhere near as much value as you can get out of some other decks. The Go Again mode that like Levia tends to use, similar. It's like, yeah, I could save you a soul, but or give you Go Again when you might otherwise not. But like, it's very minimal returns on average.
Yeah.
And then it's a non-light no block, because the ceiling on this card is high in Boltyn for sure. There are going to be times where it's going to be nuts in Boltyn, but there are going to be a lot of times where, damn, you wish this card was anything else.
Yeah.
And you kind of can get a bit of a simulator with it with Remembrance sometimes. Sometimes you draw Remembrance, and you're like, why now?
Yeah.
Why now? It is a yellow to charge, but Remembrance, you're running it into matchups where you are hopefully not going to be in these situations where you must block with a card, where drawing a no block in that moment isn't too big a deal. But I think just realistically, the problem with this card is the payoff is not on average good enough to justify a 1-cost, no block, non-light in a deck that cares about all those things a lot.
Yeah.
1 cost is non-trivial for Boltyn. He doesn't run blues.
Yeah, I put it in the trap as well section because I've tried it. I've tried everything with Boltyn, and it has put in some good turns when I played a very generic style deck, just playing it, giving, then snatch, and then something else. I think I played it in my Royal Boltyn deck for a while, and it does have those really cool turns, but it has so many times when you just don't want it to be there.
Yeah, it's not a terrible card in Boltyn in the sense that it's not immediately throwing, but I don't think it actually justifies a slot in any fully tuned list.
What if you spoke, something just sparked my thoughts here. You said you compared it to Remembrance a bit. What if you place Remembrance for this as an anti-fatigue card where you set up your deck in a way where you put in Arsenal and they're not putting that much pressure on because you're the one putting on the pressure, and then Tunic comes, it's just another V turn.
It's an interesting thought. I've never really considered it that way. I think what I like about Remembrance is just the consistency it adds. I don't need to worry about, like, this doesn't, if I'm forced to block with via the Vanguards and Luminas, this doesn't get those back.
Yeah.
This does have the upside of being less crippling to draw on a turn where I needed to block, like if they threw a crippling crush at me or something. So that's an interesting thought I hadn't actually really considered. I think I would rather just be able to put via the Vanguard back in my deck.
Probably, yeah.
But it's an interesting thought. And like I do think this card's a bit of a trap, but I don't think it's like completely unconsiderable.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next one. Crown of Dominion.
Crown of Dominion.
I put this in here because I used to play Royal Boltyn, and I won't tell you my results. We'll save it for afterwards. For after you tell me trap or slap.
Everson's Warband trap.
Oh yeah.
I actually think pre-Warband Crown of Dominion had a reasonable argument for it. Not convinced it was optimal or the best, but it was fun. It wasn't bad. It really could push some really obscene numbers into like fatigue. But it wasn't consistent, and it was also hard to justify it in like race matchups because a lot of times like, man, I wish I had Crown of Providence here.
Yeah.
I think especially now, and you also have to consider slots. You have to spend slots on cash-in, and cash-in is a dead card if you're not on a cash-in turn.
Yeah.
So I think trap. I think if you want to play Royal Boltyn because it's fun, it's still not bad. It's worse, I think. Warband is too consistently good. Warband is so good.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
just it. I can't justify spending 3 slots on Crown of Dominion,
No, it's
which doesn't have any block on it.
no, Crown Dominion is pure fun. It is if you can get those turns where you have a 5 card, 6 card, View the Vanguard. Is it 6? Yeah, 6 card View the Vanguard. Then it's
Yeah,
insane. It is, but outside of that, it's just living in a fairy tale. And you get like these insane 35, 40 damage turns once in a blue moon. Then the rest of the time, like, oh god, I can't block this. I need to block my cards, but I can't block with my helmet. I can't outrace this 5 because I need cash in. He just needs whatever he draws. So definitely fun. Play it in an armory. Play it UPF. But it's not
yeah.
anywhere near competitive. This one I think is a bit more debatable. I'm gonna say trap. I just don't.
For now,
Yeah.
I agree. I think the problem is this is a card that I think absolutely can see play in the future in Boltyn.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it's terrible right now. It's just the problem is the decks where I want Destroy Arsenal effect the most are decks that are most okay not blocking it. And Boltyn only has a handful of must block effects in his deck. So Lumina, getting to pair this on a Lumina turn, especially if you get like Bolt of Courage, that's when it's really strong.
Yeah.
But some of his most other relevant on hits are generic or light, like you have Illuminate, and then you have Snatch, Command and Conquer. This doesn't buff those. The 1 cost is really prohibitive unless you're playing it off Tunic. Even if you pair it with like Take Flight, that's like this is like okay, I don't block the Take Flight.
Yeah.
Not to mention the inconsistency of if they don't have Arsenal to destroy, it's like well then whatever. Like it's just a bad card there. So I'd agree with Trap.
Yeah,
but I think it has potential.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I'm not going to say I think it's bad. I just don't think it's as good as people want it to be. I think everyone's thinking of it in a situation where, oh yeah, great, now they have to block, or I'm going to destroy their arsenal, or I'm going to draw a card with Bolt. But that's with Bolt Courage, but that's not going to happen most of the time. It's just, I just don't think it's nearly as good as people want it to be. But it's not bad. I don't think it's horrible.
I think if they print more warrior cards that Boltyn wants to run that have on hits, like if in the future they print more cards like Bolt of Courage,
yeah,
or they've been printing more warrior attacks, so like just warrior attacks that have on hits. If Boltyn just starts presenting way more on hits that have the warrior tag, then this can become more considerable. This is actively good into some matchups like combo Boltyn. It's all right into Guardian situationally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a trap for now, but has potential.
Yellow Snatch. I don't think it's a great one. Yeah, I don't think it's a good example. So we'll just move on for this one. Prayer Bologna, I think we spoke about this a lot already.
I knew this would be here.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Like, it depends how you build a deck. For me, it's always going to be a trap because you need to move things around to make it work. And it is good. And it's like commanding performance where you read the text like, wow, this can do a lot. But what has to happen in order for this to actually work?
Yeah. This is a small trap. I think, I'm not going to go too long on this. I think it's a trap in the sense that it promotes some play and deck building that I think is a trap.
Yeah.
I do think it's not that big a trap in the sense that I think you can actually put this as like a 1 or 2 of in a flex slot. So Boltyn does have some flex slots, and I think you actually can do that in a lot of decks and have it be fine. An example is I have 2 yellow resounding courage in my deck, and a lot of the time that's a charge or a pitchback.
Yeah.
I think you don't need that high a yellow count for this to become notably consistent once you start to get into like very late cycles. And that's also when it's good because it's going to be paired with like Celestial Cataclysms, Bolting Blades and stuff. And then I think about it in the slot of Resounding Courage, and it's like, sometimes I wish that Resounding Courage was a charge card, even if it's one that might not charge.
Yeah.
So I think this is a trap in the sense that people will try to build around it too much. I actually don't think it's a trap to put it in some decks that have maybe a higher than average yellow count. But I think if you're warping your deck around it and just slinging it whenever you see it without good reasoning, then it absolutely is a trap. But I don't think it's a bad card. And I think in the future it might be better if there's more good yellows.
Yeah, I think I could see that reasoning there, and having it whenever I put it into my decks, I put it in as a card to semi-build around. If we don't build around it too much or at all, and as you say, you put it into that flex spot instead, and then you get the benefits of it when you get the benefits of it in the late game, or you just charge it, block with it, whatever. It's a light card, block 3. It has all the inclusion package that we spoke about. Then maybe that's a better way to look at it, because it is good. Like, it does draw a
when
card.
This hits, it's really strong. It's take flight. It's blue take flight in terms of text, but a buff is often better than a separate damage source. That refunds a card. If your hand is good, if it can leverage that, it's really, really, really strong. So I think people are way too focused on trying to get as consistent as possible. I think in matchups where you know it's not going to second cycle, you would cut it unless you have things better. But I'm honestly considering just slotting 1 or 2 in as flex spots, because it, in a pinch, kind of sort of ups charge count. I can pitch it back in slow, grindy matchups to potentially blow them open on a turn as another usage of Tunic. If you Tunic it and it just becomes +2, that's not great, but it's not the end of the world as long as the hand wasn't relying on it.
If you buff a Bolt of Courage off of a Tunic with this, it sort of becomes its own must block anyways.
So, I'm going to say both for this, actually. I actually think people look at this card wrong, but also it is a bit of a trap.
Lumina Lance. I love this card. I absolutely love this card.
I want to like this card. This is a trap for me.
This is a trap. I love it, but because I played with it so much, I sort of know. Again, it requires a way of building your deck that you have so much soul that when you use this, you get the benefits out of it. But in order to get that much soul, you've sacrificed a lot of go-agains, of whatever it is you're playing to get that soul, that it becomes that's where the trap lies. If you have the soul for whatever reason, and if there's a way to get that soul and still have a good deck, then this is a good card. I think it does what you want things to do. You want to draw a card, buffs your attacks. The go again thing you don't really need. It was important against Icelander because it stopped 1 point of payment for a Channel Lake Frigid, but that game was a losing game anyways. But I think for the decks that we have currently, the cards we have available to us, this should not be played.
It's not an awful card. It's just the effect is too expensive. If this was like X+1, this is a thought I've had frequently. Would this card be too good if it was X+1? Like the first mode didn't cost anything. In terms of soul. Maybe, honestly, that might be too good. But it's what you get out of it is much too expensive, I think.
Even if it was X+1, I don't think it would be good. Then it deserves a mythic, majestic status.
I would run it if it was X+1, 100%. Because that's a 0 cost. It's non-conditional, except it only targets light, which is really notable. You can't target C and C or something with it. But at X+1, I would run this card probably, like at least 1.
Because right now I'd rather run a yellow Courageous Steelhead.
And that's saying something.
And I'm never going to run a Courageous Steelhead, yellow Steelhead. So if this has 1 additional block and it gets a +2, X+1, the draw card on hit is pretty good as well. I just don't know how against certain decks it will be much better than others. But if you get two of these out of 1 soul, that becomes very good as well. And then you pay 1 more for the go again. So two soul. Yeah, then it becomes pretty damn good. I would play it instead of my red courageous steel hand in that, if that was the costing of it.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is Grains of Bloodspell. This is a tough one. I don't know if it's the right thing to put in here, but it is talked about, and I think we haven't spoke about it at all. So, what do you think?
I have to say trap for now, in the sense that if you have a deck that runs Tunic and you just swap Grains of Bloodspill into it, that is a trap. If you move just a couple cards around, it's still a trap. But I do think a good Grains Boltyn deck can exist.
Yeah.
Other people have been experimenting with it. There's been some amount of success that they've said they've had. I do know there's like one Japanese list that did like well at some like RTN or something like that. I don't know, like some small medium event.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a trap to an extent, but I think it is a card that can maybe have a place. Maybe it won't. Maybe that version of the list will just be worse. I haven't been experimenting with it, at least not in any notable capacity. But it's a trap to just swap Tunic for it, I would say.
Yeah, I think there is a deck that this works in. I don't know what that deck is. I haven't experimented enough or done the research enough to figure that out. But there is a power within it. I think the same with Prayer Bologna, Lumen Alliance, and Commanding Performance to some extent. There is a power in it that can be harnessed in some way that hasn't really been realized just yet. I played against a Boltyn Mirror Raydn, and they're on Grains, and I was like, okay, good. And I almost lost because they managed to get a good via the Vanguard off of nothing, off of the Vigor token, one of the turns. So there is a power there for sure. I still wouldn't play it in my current decks and my current setups, but I would consider looking for builds to make the most out of it. When you look at decks that attack with 2 weapons per turn, then you get more value out of it, right? Because you have more chance of hitting with one of those weapons, and there's less damage. So if you do attack for 2 damage, I might not block that. Okay, then I'll give it a Vigor token and attack the next weapon. But with Boltyn, you only get to attack with Raydn, and generally only once a turn, if that. So the opportunity of using it is also limited. Then you got to change your deck building as well. So yeah, I don't know if I think it's somewhere between the middle of trap and slap. I just don't think it's been explored enough yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Balance of Justice.
I'd say slap.
Yeah, you think it's definitely worth putting in. So when we're just defining trap and slap is something you're gonna put in your deck for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basically the cost of this is 1 slot, and you're bringing it instead of Warband in some matchups. I think that is perfectly considerable given the upside. It's a trap to bring it into any matchup that can potentially draw 2 cards. Like, you wouldn't run it into Boltyn, even though, yes, theoretically could hit with like 2 Bolted Courages in a turn. But the upside is honestly very consistent into some decks. Like, if I'm playing it into Broom, they just never Bloodrush Fellows. I'm probably winning, because they're not playing Bloodrush Fellows. So, just 2 block, draw a card almost guaranteed over the course of a matchup, even if that card just ends up being 3 more block, is so consistently good that I think it's the cost of a slot / giving up Warband is worth it. Would it necessarily justify the slot always? No, but I wouldn't call it a trap, that's for sure.
Okay. No, I think it's good. I think it does have a uses. It does fit in somewhere, and it's definitely worth trying that. 2+3 block. Would I automatically put into decks? No, I still haven't really considered it. Because my sideboard's so tight, my 80 is so tight already. I don't know what I'd replace. Definitely worth thinking about. It's on the radar. But of all the cards here so far, I think Prayer Grains would go ahead of Balance of Justice in my testing. Maybe because I already know what Balance of Justice does. It's just so easy to realize this is what it's going to do versus the other cards.
It's a very known quantity.
Yeah. Cracker Jacks. I like this card. I like the idea of this card. It's probably a trap, but just hear me out. It's your second Snapdragons.
I think it's so like if you don't own Iron Song, I think that's the main problem of this.
Iron Song versus too good.
I've never even considered it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and I can see the reasoning. I don't think it's bad, but Iron Song versus is a hell of a card.
Yeah. No, fair
I
enough.
think this is a neat budget option. I think it's a trap to replace versus with this, but it is a cool idea. It's just like Iron Song versus is so good. It's that's such a hard bar to beat.
Okay, so I haven't sold you on that one. All right, that's fine. No, I think it's cute. Like it's got that.
It is cute.
If you I don't know if you're playing Commoner or something. Of course, you probably thought about this. I don't know anything about Commoner, but people without Iron Song versus also, this would be nice. Okay, we'll move on. Shift the Tide of Battle, another heavy hitter card, which has seen success in Dory, I think, and Kasai, and
mostly Dory, I believe. I think it's a trap.
For Boltyn, for Boltyn, I agree. Yeah.
I think it's flex, so it's a yellow block 3, but it's non-light. The problem is that non-light and it's not producing any other additional value. It's like, is that worth a card given that it's not even guaranteed? I think no.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a trap for Boltyn. I'm not even going to try it. There's some cards I want to try. This one I haven't even wanted to try. Okay.
I do think some weirder, some hatchets or the mid-range savers, it has a bit more of a niche where soul economy is more important. And having go again to break Valiant or to abuse Valiant Dynamo is good. But in Raydn,
okay, Light of Soul. I've seen this around a few decks, not many. It is light. It is yellow. It does fill up your soul if it hits. It doesn't block.
Yeah. Trap asterisk. If you are on a very yellow heavy build, which I think currently is a trap but could be good in the future, like the prayer list with a lot of yellows, then you can run it. I think if your odds of hitting are just high, when it hits, I have played with this card in the past, when it hits, it can be game changing. I have had +1 soul off this thing be absolutely backbreaking for my opponent. But I do think it's a trap in the vast majority of Boltyn lists that are played, and I don't think the super yellow heavy builds are worth playing at the moment, at least. Yeah,
well, coincidentally enough, the 3 cards that would need it are all here. Prayer Bologna, Lumina, Lance, Light of Soul. So if you're building that deck, then maybe, you get that. Especially for Lumina, Lance, where you just want an excess of Soul. Light of Soul would fit into that deck, if any deck. I think I have tried a Prayer Bologna, Lumina, Lance, Light of Soul deck, and it just didn't feel good. It was clunky. When it worked sometimes, it was nice, but I didn't give it that much of a shot, to be totally honest. I just played a few games, and I said, nope, I'm going back to my comfort zone. And the last card on the Trap Slap, I forgot what it was. Let's see what it is. Cadaverous Contraband. A card, I think, put on the radar by Yuki and Ellie. Which is a popper, which does get you your Luminas back. What do you think? Last card. I know you got to go soon.
Yeah. Oh man, you had to throw a hard one right at the end. I want to say trap. I also think it's a card I should consider. It's not too much of a trap because at minimum it's a popper, right?
Yeah.
That is good. Especially if you don't own CNCs and you're like, what poppers do I put in my deck? I think this is a worthy consideration. I I don't have enough time to go over my full feelings of this card, and I've also never actually tested it. So I think it's inconsistent, a little win more. Like if you draw it before you've played Luminas, that's rough. It's a red non-blight block
2 block, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a trap, but I'm willing to accept that. One, if you need a puffers, it's worthy of consideration there, and I might also be wrong. I might be underestimating how good this effect is on average, but it's a hard sell.
Okay, yeah. I don't think I have much to say on that. I don't want to try it, to be honest. I don't want to. Even in Rhinar, I wouldn't play it, and I play a bit of Rhinar. But again, I could be wrong as well. I could be just too tunnel visioned on my game plan, and not wanting to sort of deter from that. And I love CNCs, so I'm never going to take CNCs out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know you got to go, Aidan. Thanks so much for your time. I probably have to split this up into 2 videos because it's 2 hours long. I got to go through the recordings now. That's going to be the toughest part. Yeah, I'll let you know how I come along with the editing, and I'll share the video with you and post it online. And yeah, thanks again for your insight. And I need to watch. You need to get online so I can watch you play those KO games.
I will when I find KOs that feel worth playing against.
Okay, I'll help you look then. I'll look for some for you, and I'm sure I know a few.
Sounds good. Well, I need to go to work now.
Cheers. Thanks. Take care. Bye bye.
See ya.